What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Literally Nothing But Everything podcast with your host, Mike Rispoli, and we're going to be making some changes. So this podcast is still in the baby stages, so I feel like I could be making changes as we go along here until I finally fine-tune this thing. I've made some changes to this in the past. I've already changed up the music. If you go back to the earlier episodes, you're going to know that the intro and outro music are already different, because like I said, this is all just a fucking work in progress. I'm just trying to figure it out. So bear with me here, guys. Bear with me. We can only get better from here. It's only up from here. So, just to give a little bit of context as to where this is coming from, I went to Rhode Island and I saw some friends that I hadn't seen in a while, which was great. I really enjoyed my time up there. It was really great to spend some time with some friends that I haven't seen in like almost a year at this point. Or with some friends, it was even longer just due to scheduling issues. But because they're great friends, they told me that they listened to this podcast, which I really do appreciate. And they were actually roasting the hell out of me. They're like, when you say, hey... It actually sounds like when a chick texts you, hey, with 3 Ys. So maybe you think about changing the way you say it, or you think about changing it up a bit. And you know what's funny is everybody thinks that they can just do a podcast. But once that microphone is in front of you, especially if this is a medium that you're totally new to, it's almost like you just get automatic social anxiety. You're just like, what do I say? How do I do this? How do I want to come across? You just go through your head and you just get too involved in your head. Because you also have to think of it this way. People who already have like big podcasts are already big name people and they already have a following. Or maybe they're already in media, so they already know how to maybe come across a certain way and they know how to say what they want to say automatically. And they're just automatically way more comfortable with it. Like, personally, every week, I feel like I am becoming more comfortable with this, but I'm not perfect with it. Like, this is not a perfect science for me. I'm still trying to figure this thing out as I'm going along. So yeah, I look to my friends for advice on maybe things that they would look at for what they would listen to. And that's why I'm always also reaching out to you guys to let me know what you guys want to hear as well. And honestly, thank God I have friends who are honest and actually told me some tips where they're like, hey, maybe you want to change up some stuff. And maybe also something that you might notice this episode is I took off a filter that I had where I sounded a little too echoey. So as we were listening to it as a group, and I was actually like really truly listening to this how I should have been the whole time, I started noticing some things that I would want to change. And another one of those things is I re-listened to last week's episode and I was like, holy crap, I swear so much. Like those first 10 minutes last week, I was like, that's almost unlistenable. Like, I do naturally swear when I'm talking to my friends or whatever, but I really need to cut down on the fact of how much I use it as a filler. But then speaking of change, there's also something that I want to bring up that I mentioned last week, which is the whole Harrison Butker thing, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think when it came down to doing this podcast, I was just a little bit too into my head, and quite honestly, maybe I was just being a little bit too overzealous with this whole thing. But that's not how I am when I'm talking to my friends. I'm not out here just being like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm like, yo, what up? Like, I don't know why I was trying to do that. Trying to be more engaging because I don't feel like I'm engaging. Maybe it's because I'm trying too hard to make you guys all want to listen to this stupid thing. But you know what I've really come to realize is I absolutely hate doing introductions and trying to come up with a fun way to try and introduce myself. Every episode I do this and I just cringe every time I hear it, but I'm like, maybe this is what you guys want to listen to, but I don't have any followers, so also maybe it's not. Maybe I actually just need to be my more genuine self, so here we fucking go. Let's get this bitch started here. But I already mentioned that I went up to Rhode Island, so how was all of your weekends? In all honesty, like that actually is a serious question. I ask you guys that every week, nobody writes in, but... hopefully you guys had a good weekend. I actually had a blast hanging out with my friends. I really, just loved the Rhode Island area. I really missed hanging out with my friends. Like I said, I hadn't seen them in, a year, so that was really great to just have, a couple days to really catch up. And one of the things that we did... sorry, I was just sliding over my mic. But what we did was on Saturday night, we went out to this Brazilian steakhouse, which was actually really good. And it was that typical all-you-can-eat, meat stuff, and they had the typical salad bar, and we were all just making the typical jokes of, oh, can't get too much meat in your mouth. Oh, got a mouthful of meat. Ha ha ha. But then after that, we ended up going to this Asian restaurant because my friends were like, oh, there's this really cool band that's playing there. And I was like, what is so great about a typical bar band? Why would we do this? But we end up then taking a little drive to this bar in Westport, Mass, called the Oriental Pearl, which is an Asian restaurant, as you can tell, which is actually really funny because Oriental is now like not a word that you would want to use for Asian people, but yet every Asian restaurant seems to use the word Oriental. So is it really that offensive if they're putting the word in the name of the place so we're all forced to have to friggin' say it? I don't know. I don't know. But it was kind of interesting because the bar, right when you walk in, even though it was an Asian restaurant, they served Asian food. The bartenders were Asian, but the bar itself kind of gave off like dive bar Americana. Like there was neon Bud Light signs in the windows, and that was pretty much it. I mean, there was also like this big dance floor with the stage for the band. But besides the food and who was working behind the bar, I don't know what made it Asian. Because then it was also funny. You had like 60-year-old Gertrude walking around doing bussing and waitressing. So, really interesting concept. But as I was saying, we didn't go there for the food. We actually just ended up going for the band that was playing. And they were called Back in the Day. And in all seriousness, what they really should have done was just done a play on the band Weezer and just called themselves Geezer. Because these guys were 60 years old, but let me tell you, they fucking rocked. We got there at 9:30. They went on at 9. So right when we walk in, they're playing. And as soon as we got there and I was hearing them, I was like, I could definitely see why my friend wanted to see them. Because they were fucking awesome. Honestly, the lead singer to this bar band could really take over for Vince Neil from Motley Crue. I mean, he had the voice registry of Vince Neil. He was in the same shape. The only difference was he didn't dye his hair blonde. And if you don't think that Vince Neil is out here dyeing his hair, you're crazy. And honest to God, he was built the exact same way. He was just a 60-year-old fat guy who was screaming his heart out. So it's not like Motley would be out here totally changing their look if they hired him. And he's got such a much better voice than Vince. I mean, unlike Vince, it wasn't like he was gasping for breath after every word he sang. Like, no joke, Vince sings the same way that I do when I don't know the lyrics to a song. Like, literally, when Vince sings, like, if he's singing Shout at the Devil, he's like, no, 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 no. Like, he just doesn't even know the fucking lyrics. And he just sounds like he's absolutely coked out of his mind. But the lead singer for this band that I saw at this bar, holy crap was he good. For 60 years old, he could still belt it. I mean, I don't really want to assume, but I don't think he's done nearly as many drugs as Vince did back in the day. But this dude definitely took care of his voice, where Vince just sounds like a dying, screeching eagle. I actually might post them on my Instagram. I gotta work more on my social. Like, maybe that's kind of my shtick. I'm a podcaster with shitty social. I don't know. I gotta figure that out. I gotta find more ways to get people to listen to this thing. But I obviously don't know what they were playing before we got there. But right when we got there, they were playing Poison songs. I think the first song that I heard was Talk Dirty to Me. And then they went into Nothing But a Good Time, I want to say. They played like 2 or 3 songs from each band that they were playing from. So, except for Heart. The only Heart song I remember they played was Barracuda. And fun facts, Heart was also one of the first concerts I ever saw. But after Barracuda, they went into this Pink Floyd mashup where they played 5 songs. They were playing Young Less, Time, Money, Run Like Hell, and Comfortably Numb. And it all blended perfectly. At one point, I can't remember what song it was, but he was kind of pulling a Scott Weiland, and he just pulls out a megaphone and he starts singing from that. I was like, I've never seen anybody except Michael Stipe and Scott Weiland do that, so that was kind of interesting. But then it was cool, because then other members of the band also sang. Like, the keyboardist played the 2 Billy Idol songs, or he sang the 2 Billy Idol songs that they played, and then the guitarist, when they played a Peter Frampton song, he was singing, and like, the 3 guys who were singing in the band were all fantastic. Like, every member of that group was just, like, fucking out of this world good. But what was nuts is they actually played 2 different set lists. They played until 1. They started at 9. They played until 1. And the first set was kind of just that classic rock, poppy kind of, like, hard rock music. But it was essentially just 80s glam. And then they also played Renegade by Styx. And then the second set was actually heavier stuff. So it was kind of a good mix of music, because the second set, the first thing that they did was Mr. Crowley, which was amazing to see people dancing to that song. I never would have in a million years thought that I would see people dancing to that. And then they went into No More Tears. But then they did something that I wasn't expecting, where they played a Rainbow song, and they played Man on the Silver Mountain. And if anybody knows Ronnie James Dio, that guy has a voice that is just almost up there with Freddie Mercury. I mean, rest in peace to both of them, but Dio had such a powerful voice. So the fact that they didn't totally butcher that song was honestly amazing in itself. And then they finished out with 3 AC/DC songs. They played TNT, Highway to Hell, and then their last song was It's a Long Way to the Top. And I'm so glad that they didn't play You Shook Me All Night Long, because as much as a typical bar song as that is, it's honestly so overplayed. And it was actually cool to see a band not just stick with like the absolute hits with one of the most popular bands. So I thought that was a really great change of pace. Honestly, as if any of you really give a shit. Oh, we don't really care what the fuck they played. We weren't there. Well, you know what? I'm telling you. It's what I did over the weekend, so live vicariously through me. But alright, even though the band was awesome, I gotta say, the highlight of the night, there was this one guy, he was at least 70 years old, decked out in a white suit, untucked pink shirt, and he was just hitting on all the women in his area. Married, girlfriend or not, he didn't care. He was going right after them. So my friend nicknamed him Tommy Slick. But behind that guy, there was a dude dancing. He also had to have been at least 70 years old. If he wasn't 70, he was at least in his like mid 60s. And he was doing what I can only say is attempting to dance. Now, I am not a dancer. You will never catch me on a dance floor. Even at my sister's wedding 2 years ago, if it wasn't for the girl that I brought to the wedding, I never would have even jumped up on that dance floor. Like you guys think I'm uncomfortable on this podcast, I'm even way more uncomfortable on a dance floor. So I will never be somebody who's like gonna be dancing at a bar, because I'm not out here willingly trying to embarrass myself. So I'm not one to talk. But like I said, this dude was only attempting to do what I can only call dancing. But the way that I describe his dance move is like, it's kind of like when you have that moment of feeling a shit coming on, and you just have that moment of panic where you're looking around for the bathroom. Because all he would do is he would take a step to the side and then bring his shoulder forward, take a step with his other foot to the side, bring that shoulder forward. So it was pretty much like he just did like a really big shimmy. So at least he was doing something that I couldn't do. So kudos to that guy. But I will say, where not being able to dance bites you in the ass is when you see a really attractive girl go on the dance floor and you think she might be single, but you don't have the balls to go up there because your version of dancing is only what some people might refer to as looking like you're having a seizure, and you don't want to look like a total idiot, and that's your first impression. Because there were these 2 girls that walked in who were the only ones remotely close to my age. I mean, they had to have been at least 25 from what I could see. I mean, they were absolutely, like, gorgeous. Now, I'm also not sure if it was, like, the cheerleader effect, where it's just based on the other people around them. But they were attractive. Like, I thought that they were really cute. But they were dancing to Renegade, like, really hard. So I'm thinking, like, maybe they're into this type of music. And I love this type of music that the band was playing. So I was thinking maybe I just walk up to them and ask if they're into that type of music, and then I start a conversation that way. But then the fear was like if they had asked me to dance, I would have had to say no just to save my own self-reputation and self-worth. But ends up that they ended up leaving with like 3 guys, so I can only assume that 2 of them were like the boyfriends and one of the guys was like one of their friends or something. Or I could just be totally dead wrong and those guys just had the balls to do something that I didn't have the courage to do, and maybe they were just going to run the midnight train. But anytime a group of girls walks in with guys, you just automatically assume it's a boyfriend or whatever. And that's the other fear of, oh, that's a really attractive girl. Like, let me go up to her. But you don't know if they have a boyfriend or something. And then you're all of a sudden labeled as that guy. And then the boyfriend gets pissed off. And you don't know he's been training in jiu-jitsu. So then all of a sudden you end on your ass. That is not a fun time for anybody. So welcome to the world of dating where everything is just unknown. So that just ended up being my Saturday night. And then Sunday, I ended up playing a round of golf at a par 3 course that the town that I was in had just opened. And it's funny because I talked to a friend of mine like a couple weeks ago, and he knew that I was going to be going up to Rhode Island. And he was like, oh, what are your plans? I'm like, oh, you know, I actually might play a round of golf. And he just goes, you play golf? I didn't know that. I'm like, dude, I'm a white dude from a rich town. If you don't play tennis, you fucking play golf. So yes, I have been known to play golf, even though I absolutely suck. Let me tell you, I totally realized that on Sunday when I played my first round in like 15 years. I hadn't stepped on a golf course in at least 15 years. I don't even think I've swung a club in at least a year and a half, 2 years. So that one was a rough one, let me tell you. But it was fun. I still ended up having a great time because it's not necessarily the fact of like doing something that you're bad at, especially if it's something like golf. It's actually just a matter of being with people who you're with. And like the company is ultimately what makes or breaks any sort of situation. So it ended up still being a really great time. And if anything, that round of golf made me realize how much I wanted to kind of get back into it. But I really got to figure out my swing. I mean, every shot was just going so far right. My balls may as well have been called Trumpolis. I don't know what it is. I don't know if my arms are coming in first, if I'm just swinging way too fast. I mean, let me tell you, I was swinging so fucking fast, it wasn't even funny. I topped the ball way more than I'm willing to admit. But what's crazy is I started out with 6 balls. I only lost 4. So I call that a win. I ended up shooting a fucking 62 though on a par 3 9-hole course, which is awful. So I definitely have some work to do. But if anybody has any tips on what I might be doing wrong, like is it where I have my ball placement? Is it the fact that my club is too open? I have no idea. So if any of you are golfers, let me know. And if you're just going to write in and make a ball joke like, oh, having trouble with your balls, I don't really want to hear it. But I will say, as bad as my like drives and my irons were, I actually did have a couple of chips where I was just like, this is why we do this. Because I had a few awesome chips, not to toot my own horn. Like if I was only 25 feet, or I don't know what golf is, yards. If I was like maybe like 10 yards away from the pin, if I got that chip, I was fucking golden, pony boy. Now, I did have one hole where it was just like, I just fucking absolutely soared it over the green. Had to walk my ass around the green. Fucking soared that one. Walk my ass back. After like the 4th time of doing that, I was just like, just pick up my ball. I'm going to be here all day. So that ended up sucking. But there were at least 3 shots where I was just like, Kobe! But since we are talking about golf, I feel like it's only respectable to bring this up about what happened with Greyson Murray. And if you don't know who Greyson Murray is, and if you didn't hear the news about what happened, Greyson Murray was a PGA golfer who made the decision to take his own life. And my heart truly does go out to his family about this. I mean, I don't know if anybody knew what he was going through. I mean, I know he had depression and some issues with alcohol, but it truly is sad that he didn't feel he had the support system to talk about what he was going through. It's never a good situation when somebody feels that that is their only way out. But if you are battling a demon that you just cannot seem to grab a hold of, or if you are dealing with some sort of issue, whether it be depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, whatever the disorder might be, you truly should try and get the help that you need. I mean, also, as fans, if you were a fan of Greyson Murray, if you were saddened by his death, truly imagine, like, put yourself in his parents' shoes or his siblings' shoes. I don't know if he has any siblings, but like, put yourself in his family members' shoes and imagine how sad they would be. So take that and then imagine how your family would be if you were deciding to do that. Like, you really should get the help that you need if you truly are going through stuff. Like, nobody's going to look down on you just because you need to talk things out. It's perfectly okay. Like, everybody goes through shit. Everybody feels a certain way. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to find the help that you need rather than trying to make a shot that you don't think you're actually going to fucking miss. So may Greyson Murray actually parlay in peace. Get it? Because par, golf, lay in peace. Ha ha ha. Nah, that's fucking stupid. So, moving on. Since we're on the topic of sports, something I want to bring up is actually something that I brought up last week about Harrison Butker's speech. Now, I'm actually not going to retract what I said, but I'm also not out here trying to defend myself because after the episode aired, I had a few people reach out to me and they were like, did you actually listen to the speech? And I said no, because I actually had not listened to it. All I did was I just like saw a headline article. I literally just read the quote. And I also just only saw that one clip of what that person on the news said. So I actually had no basis on what I was actually talking about. I was just strictly talking about things on a face level. Because if you just took his quote and what he said, I was like, there's really nothing wrong with what he said. But I actually went back and I did listen to the speech. And boy, given the context of what he said, I was dead ass wrong. Because he was talking about how women have been lied to, and he was also bringing up how, like, our leaders have been lying to us, and it was honestly like he was just purposely trying to be controversial for absolutely no reason. Like, you're at a commencement speech, there's no reason to bring politics into the argument here. For, like, whatever reason he decided to do that was absolutely stupid. But the thing that I will retract is that first of all, when I was talking to my friend, this tells you that I didn't even watch the speech, because when I was talking to my friend, I actually quoted Harrison Bucker, and I thought that my friend had said that. And the quote that I'm referring to is when Bucker said that he had seen it firsthand how much happier somebody can be when they disregard the outside noise and move closer and closer to God's will in their life, and that Isabel's dream of having a career might not have come true, but if you asked her today if she had any regrets on her decision, that she would laugh out loud without hesitation and say, heck no. So first of all, misquoting Bucker as my friend's own quote, that was mistake number one. But the second problem that I had after listening to the speech and the context that he said it was pretty much that he just said, for all the women in the audience, you're probably excited about getting careers, but you're probably more excited about being a wife and a mom. And then he went into how his wife gave up her career. And it's like, okay, so you only want women to be independent for a short period of time? Like, go fuck yourself, buddy. Like, after listening to the speech, I actually kind of took it now as he was pretty much saying, like, oh yeah, you can have your career, but then once you meet somebody, it's your fucking civic duty just to be a wife and a mother. Like, I was like, holy crap, I was way off when I was talking about this last week. Because, again, last week, I was only talking about it at face value. Like, yes, if a woman does just want to be a homemaker, that doesn't make her any less of a woman than somebody who's going to work in a career. But this man literally only told women that that was what they were meant to do. So it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, where the fuck are you in society nowadays? And I think this is also just maybe like him just being a truly traditional Catholic, but it's like, dude, the world is not the same way that it was fucking like 100 years ago. Like, women are way more capable of literally just being wives and mothers. Like, I know I said that last week, but considering the context that he said it, that's all he meant. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? And then he was just randomly talking about like leadership and IVF and abortion and how women have been fed lies. And it's like, bro, where in the Bible does it say women can't use IVF? If it does, somebody's gonna have to reach out to me. But when I heard that, I was just like, hey man, if you truly believe the Bible is fact, technically Jesus was the first person to be conceived by IVF. Because God just inseminated Mary. Like, Jesus wasn't conceived naturally. I mean, let's be real here. Mary was the OG surrogate mother. And then one of the things that he talked about was like Biden using the sign of the cross at an abortion rally or something like that. And as much as I actually, like, as a Catholic myself, I can appreciate the context behind what he's trying to say there about how, like, that might be a little bit misconstrued or a little bit like sacrilegious. The fact that you're using the sign of the cross as a way to support abortion. Like, I kind of understand how that's a little bit hypocritical. Since we're on this topic of abortion, I feel like it actually is appropriate to bring this up. But on a government level, I mean, there is a reason why there's a separation of church and state. And from my understanding, even though it's not in the Constitution, separation of church and state in Jefferson's letter is one of the main reasonings behind the freedom of religion, because the governmental body is actually not meant to uphold the beliefs of the church. However, I will say this. I also think it's because, like, at the time they hated Catholics and they were fearful that Catholics would impose too much power. Hence, I mean, as we see what's going on now, look at fucking Harrison Bucker's speech. But as a Catholic myself, it might sound really stupid and Catholics might get upset at me for this, but I'm actually on the side of just allow it and let them fuck around and find out. Like, if someone that I have no affiliation with is getting an abortion, that really is no bearing on my ability to get into heaven. Like, I truly don't understand how that affects me whatsoever. Like, God gave us free will, and if that's what someone chooses to do, then how is that my problem? Plus, in the sake of medical issues or whatever, like, just fucking allow it. Oh, but it's your duty to make sure that people aren't doing the sins of God or whatever. But you know what? We're all born sinners. And it's only my job just to abide by God's rule and what I think God wants out of me to do in this life. So if somebody else wants to go fuck around and find out, that's their problem. That's not my problem. I can only tell them what my disagreements are. But it's not my like calling to force somebody to do something, because God gave us free will for a reason. And honestly, in general, I think this is kind of where, like, especially the Catholic religion, we truly need to make some updated changes here. Like, let priests get married, let gay people get married. I just don't understand it. I really don't understand it. Like, if we're all made in God's image, and there's gay people and there's trans people, like, why would God make them if they were just gonna, like, burn in hell anyways? That doesn't make any sense to me. To a certain degree, to tell me that it's a choice for people to live such a hard life knowing they're just gonna be condemned, it just doesn't make sense to me at all. Now, as much as I don't agree, or as much as I might not be like super accepting of the whole trans thing, just because I don't fully understand it, again, as I said last week, let them fucking do what they want. It's not my problem. My problem comes down to the fact when they just force me to think that it's normal and it's kind of not. I think I actually said that like 2 weeks ago. But again, that's not really for me to judge, and I still think that we should all just treat people as people. Like, what do I give a fuck what you want to do with your life? It's your life. Go live it the way you want. But I also don't look at the Bible as true fact. I mostly look at the Bible as morals and stories, and how I can lead my life to be a better person and to be the best person that I can be. But at the same point, I also do believe in God because, as I've mentioned in early episodes of this podcast, there are things that have happened to me when I do bring religion into my life and how my life does become better. And I do think that that is from a higher power. At the same point, I also believe that you can't have something from nothing. So the universe was definitely made by some sort of outside force that is way beyond our control. And until somebody can come up with a God theory, I'm going to believe in God, and I truly do believe in God. And part of the reason why I also believe in God is because as a Catholic, there is a section of church where you give peace to people, and you just feel this like overwhelming sense of like joy, for lack of a better word. I don't know how else to describe it. But that's also not to say that I don't think that the Catholic Church needs some sort of a reform in the fucking views that they have, because some of these views are just so stupidly outdated. You also gotta realize, if you haven't noticed, every story in the Bible is a transcription from God. So somebody else wrote it. Like, it's just a collection of stories that other people wrote down. So it could also be that the way that they interpreted it. And there's a reason why there's so many different sects of Christianity, because everybody views the Bible in such a different way. So I do think that there needs to be some sort of a reform. Now, am I saying that everything needs to change? No, I do think that there is some value in tradition. But I do think that on a lot of certain levels, given where we are in society and how we now might view God, I think we can maybe make some updates. And I think people's views need to also update, because we're not fucking living in the Stone Ages anymore. We have technology. And to loop this back to the introduction of the episode, as I said, I'm not perfect. I did not listen to Harrison Bucker's speech before I went off on my tangents. So, again, all of this is a learning curve. And something that I did learn is maybe I actually do true research on something when I'm going to be talking about something that's so extensive. But also, as my audience, I really do kind of rely on you guys to write in and let me know when I'm being a moron. Because believe me, there's going to be plenty of times where I say a lot of stupid shit on this thing. We're kind of all in this together here at this point. But alright people, I've actually talked for about 30 minutes now, so I'm fucking fried. And I'm assuming that you guys are also so tired of listening to me too. So that does it for me. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. If you haven't already, please give me that follow. Maybe write up a review. If you want to help boost this, please give me a 5-star rating. And if you want to reach out, you know where to find me at lndemedia@gmail.com. Alright guys, thank you for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I'll catch up with you next Tuesday.